All right, you make pass. Did you guys have a good holiday? Pretty good? Some of you look like you were a little heavy on the carbs. You still got that stunned glazed look in your face. I'm not sure if that's just listening to me now for 4 weeks or whether that was way too many potatoes. I don't know. Most folks I've talked to said that it was a pretty good holiday. There were a couple folks complaining about the weather. There wasn't much snow, and as soon as they did that, they wired it right up because there were other people around, and I'm really glad there wasn't much snow. I haven't really met anybody who didn't have a bad time. I know some of you are still holiday merrymaking. I know we got folks that are going to be traveling to see grandkids and kids, and there's still presents under the trees to be opened because our exiles have not all done that. We're looking forward to that. But like I said, just about everybody I know had a pretty good time. It's not hard, I don't think, to have a pretty Christmas. Most people figure out at some point how to do it, and then we stick with the formula, whatever it is that works. You know what I mean? We try to figure out what is our ritual, what is our routine for the holiday, and generally, unless we absolutely have to, we don't deviate it very much. Give you an example. My family, one of the rituals is there are always 2 Christmas trees. They represent the 2 very distinct ideas of what it means to decorate for the holidays. There is the side of the family who I believe is descended from Laura Ashley, and everything has to be perfectly coordinated. The wrap, the wallpaper, everything. And then there is the side who I think came from Vegas, who just throws lights on anything that holds still, and anything that we can find that's bright and shiny, we throw it on. And we've done that for over 25 years now, right? We do that. We have to do that. We have to have 2 trees. That is the ritual. That is the routine. That is the way things work. We always have to get together. My folks are here this morning. We had some other folks cycle through the house this past week because that's our ritual and our routine. I know it's not every family's ritual and routine. Sometimes it's merrier when you don't see the family, but in our situation, it works out pretty well. So everybody gets together. And then when you get all together, you tell the old stories, right? This ornament reminds you of this, or that gift reminds you of that, and you remember the year that Aunt Bev bought everybody pressure cookers, and you remember the year everybody got Ginsu knives, and you remember this and that, and you go through this litany, you go through this recalling of who we are and why we are here. If you can grasp that in your own experience, you can think back to where you were this past Friday and how you celebrated, then I think you can pretty much step without too much discomfort into the lines of Mary and Joseph and Jesus when they traveled from Nazareth down to Jerusalem for the Passover. Because to them, Passover was very much like our Christmas. It was a time when a lot of very old, venerable rituals that had been developed over eons practically were trotted out and they were dusted off. And everybody, the young, the old, the people that you've known forever and the people you've met for the first time participated in this. And they didn't just get together at somebody's house and do this. This was kind of a road show. You would get your family together, you would join up with other families, and pretty soon you would all be caravanning down to Jerusalem at the same time. And every step you would take as you went from north to south had a story behind it. Oh, look, we're passing Samaria now. This is where the capital of the northern kingdom used to be. Oh, over there are the ruins of Bethel. Over there is the Oak of Mamre. Here is the turnoff that leads over to Bethlehem, where David the High King was born. And those are the plains of Megiddo. Just like your house. Everything has a story behind it. Every little ritual, every little aspect is bathed in some kind of meaning. Here's what I'd like you to think about for just a second before we go any farther. In the year ahead, what rituals, what routines will you carry with you as we journey, not to Jerusalem, but closer to Christ's likeness? Let's be intentional about this. Let's not just back into 2016. How will you, in the coming year, form your life in such a way that you realize that what's forming your life really isn't you? How will you make yourself pay attention? Jewish children were taught to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So let me ask you, how are you going to do that? Let me ask for full Wabash Christian. How are you going to do that, Wabash Christian? Church families have great resources within themselves, great rituals and routines that they can draw upon to make themselves aware that we are always with God, the oldest of which we celebrate every time we get together. Disciples are so mad about communion, we can't do anything without a loaf and a cup. I have been on disciple softball teams where we could not take back until somebody broke the cup and had, or broke the, well, we broke the cup probably because we were wearing mitts, but broke the loaf and had the cup. That's why we do this. This is such a meaningful ritual. It's such a call apart from ourselves. But that's not the only thing, right? I've heard of some of the things that we do here at Wabash. I met one at the Living Crash last week. He said, oh, yeah, we always have baby goats running around in fellowship hall. That is our ritual. That is our routine. That is how we get ourselves focused. So, okay, if that works for us, let's keep doing that. Going to bed upstairs in the CE wing and your livestock out in the front yard. Hey, if that works for us, let's keep doing that. But I don't think it's the only one. I think there are other things as well. Doesn't our building kind of function to a certain degree like this? I was told by some folks that it's not uncommon for folks to stop by because this building is on the National Historical Register to see it. And it's not uncommon for one of you to walk them through it and tell them the stories in the same way that Mary and Joseph would have talked to Jesus about this is who we are and this is where we came from. People say this building was put here on this date and this land was bought by these 10 families and this is who we are. Even funny things like the removal of the plaster from outside. I just learned this last week. There's a story that goes with that. That's great. We need to look for other things that work that way. I've heard some of the recipes that are used work that way. They have connections that run us deeper to where we came from and where we are, and we need to hold on to them. We will have 52 worship services in this year. And I promise you right up front, I promise not to monkey with them too much, because I'm a big believer that the form of worship that we have was loaded down with all kinds of ritual and routine that we find meaningful, and that shouldn't be tinkered with lightly. But what else, Wabash Christian? What else can we do to redeem the time ahead, to walk intentionally into it, so that we don't just bypass the fact that we have been in God's presence? I really like to know what you think. I really would. Come find me. I'll make you a cup of coffee. You can tell me what you know. More than that, what will you do as an individual on the pilgrimage that lies ahead in the coming year? What will you do? What rituals and routines will you build in? How many of you are familiar with the concept of a prayer book? You ever heard of that? If you grew up in a high church tradition, you probably are. You grew up with the Missal, or you grew up with the Common Book of Prayer. I'm a big fan of the Celtic Book of Prayer. This is a very old Christian tradition where at certain times of the day, you just stop what you're doing and you make yourself aware of what's going on. Benedict said there were 7 hours of prayer. I'm sorry, I can't get up at 4:30 to pray. I'm not a dairy farmer. That's just not the way I'm wired, okay? But I can do the main 3, morning, afternoon, and evening. It is a great way to redeem the time, to pause and to think, as you go through the day, I am going through this with God. I am beginning with God. I've gone halfway with God. I am going to the end of it with God. Maybe there's something else that you can do. I have neighbors that celebrate the Sabbath in a special way. Maybe on your Friday, everybody comes home and we make a pizza, and before we eat the pizza, we all pause as family and we recount how God has been with us in this past week. I've seen families that do this with Bible study with their kids, and the kids always fight over who gets to light the candle, who gets to snuff the candle. Something about kids playing with fire never goes away. It's always there. How will you do this? Please, give it some thought. Because we stand at the beginning of this journey. And not just the enjoyment, but the profit of what lies ahead to a certain extent lies in how intentional we will be. What will you do? What will I do? What will we all do? As Mary and Joseph, we are told in the text, did when it says every year they went to Jerusalem for the Passover. Well, as you know, no plan survives contact with reality for very long. And our plan didn't survive very well this past year. No fault of ours, of course. We did everything right. We got everything that we needed. We had the turkey, we had the potatoes, we have this particular tomato casserole thing that we do every year. We always have to have that. Somebody throws some token thing green on it, just so we can say we have the 4 food groups there. We had the right rolls from Great Harvest. We had them all there. And we got up Christmas morning, looking forward to our favorite meal, when my wife informed me that our Samsung refrigerator has developed an eccentricity, and that the turkey that had been sitting in it to be thaw was as hard as a cinder block. It was frozen solid. There was no amount of warm water or prayer or anything that you could do to thaw that thing out. In fact, it's still sitting at home as hard as any oak stone. And we couldn't eat it. And I think when Mary and Joseph got to Jerusalem and they began to go through the ritual and the routine, they had a similar problem, not with what they were going to eat, but with who they brought with them. Because Jesus went missing. He just disappeared. I don't know about you, sometimes it's a nice thing when your kids aren't around, but when you're in a strange place and there's all kinds of people coming and going and you don't know what's happened to them, there are a few things that will get your adrenaline flowing as much as that will. And just to think about this, Jerusalem at Passover would quadruple in population size. People were camping in the alleys, people were camping all around it. People were coming from all over the world. It was not an uncommon thing in Jerusalem at this particular period to see and to meet people who didn't speak your language. It's like, losing your kids in the middle of LaGuardia or in O'Hare. It's like being in Paris and turning around and realizing you can't talk to anybody. You find out where you're going. And I have a feeling that's probably how they felt. Here's their son, who, by the way, is 12 years old at this point. He has every right to go off on his own because when you're 12 and you're a Jew, you are a man. So he goes off to be a man, and they're thinking to him, well, he's still a little boy, he's still a baby. Look, I still have the pictures from down in the stable in Nazareth. Oh my gosh, And they can't find him. And they look high and they look low. They ask, just like you and I would, anybody that they who would be familiar with him, maybe seen this kid. It was the first century equivalent of putting his picture on the side of a milk carton. They just seen him, can't find him, they're asking around, they can't find the kid. And they are visibly distraught. It says, I like the way that it came across in Tom's version, they were anxious when they found him. Now, why is this important to notice? Probably because in the year ahead, the same darn thing is going to happen to us. We will have our rituals, we will have our routines, we will have our plans, and then life will happen. And what we thought was going to happen will not happen. Things beyond our control will come along and they will throw what we thought was going to be the best year of our lives into a cocked hat. And there'll be nothing for it. And like them, we will be anxious because we want the best way and the worst way to reassume control over our lives, and we just can't. I guarantee you, if I was a bet man, I would lay money down right here that when we get back here a year from now, we'll be able to name those moments when we were anxious, when things did not go the way we thought they were supposed to. And it can come from any order. Go to a doctor's office, you feel fine, the doc runs all the tests, you're waiting for the nurse to swipe your card, get your medical information, and then the doc will tell you, you need to come back to my office for a few minutes. All we want you to go see a specialist. We get some test results, and we're not sure what they mean, and we want to follow up on it. And the next thing you know, you're talking to an oncologist or a cardiologist, or you're talking to some specialist. Because something that you didn't plan on, when you watch your high-fiber cereal, when you drank your water, when you did your exercise, when you took care of yourself, will come along. I guarantee you, sometime in the next 12 months, one of us who's been plugging away at the same job year after year after year and had it all sketched out until they give us the gold watch and we retire and we get to go to Key West and work on our teams, we'll find out that our job has been outsourced or our position has been abolished or a new mandatory retirement age has been put into place. And we're sorry. We're sorry. It's nothing personal. Just policy. But you're not here anymore. And you may hear that with your head. And you may even understand why this makes financial or operational sense. But what you can't come to terms with is what's in your heart. That's who I am. That's been my job forever and a day. And how am I going to be me without that part of me there anymore? That will happen. There will be couples that look like Ward and June Cleaver, who 12 months from now will not be together anymore. There will be people who have been sitting in the same pew for the same place since Jip was a pup, who are not here next year. And there will be strangers in their place. Things will happen to you and to me and to all of us together. And we need to just acknowledge that. I'll tell you the main reason why I feel like that. Sometimes we Christians, probably for well-meaning reasons, like to pass off the notion that if you just, it's like algebra, x plus y equals z. If you just, you can fill in x and y with whatever you want. If you pay your tithe, that's x, and you go to church, that's y. Or if you read your Bible, that's x, and you shake the pastor's hand, that's y. Or whatever it is, whatever formula it is. We make it sound like life with God is like a vending machine. You put in the right change, and you pull the lever, and you get what you want. Nobody in the Bible lives that kind of life. I'm serious. Nobody in the Bible lived that way. Things happened to those folks, good and bad, that they did not anticipate, and they could not control. The 12 tribes are down in Egypt, and they're slaves. All of a sudden, you're free. And the greatest superpower in that world is set back on its heels, because the Lord delivered them with a mighty outstretched hand. Pharaoh could have prepared for that from now until next Christmas, and he still would not have been ready for it. Goliath trots out in front of the Philistines and he shakes his spear, which is about the size of a telephone pole, and says, "Bring him on! Bring him on!" And some snot-nosed kid from the line of Jesse rolls out and plants a stone between his eyes and lays the big fellow low. Didn't see that coming. Happens the other way, too. Bunch of blue-collar guys doing what blue-collar guys do when they're on their break after a long shift, smoking and joking, standing around by their fishing boats. Some strange guy says, "Hey, leave your boats, leave your nets, come follow me." Peter and James and John become the fathers of the church. Or a young woman, maybe 12, maybe 15, living by herself, looking forward to the future, packing her hope chest, brushes shoulders with an angel named Gabriel, and she is told that you will be the mother of the Messiah. You don't see those things come, but they happen all the same. They happen all the same. When Paul rode into Damascus with the Pharisees' habeas corpus in his pocket, he did not expect to get laid low. Peter did not expect to deny Jesus 3 times. Jonah, when he shipped out, did not expect to see the inside of a whale. So who are we to think it will not happen to us? The unexpected will happen. It will come. Wabash Christian, it will come to you. I don't know how, but believe me, it will be here. It will be here. We can have the best operational plans in place, and then the roof will leak. We can can have the best policies and constitution in place, and then we will encounter something that we've never seen before, we never planned on occurring before, and we will have to scramble. The board, the elders, we will all have to put our heads together and swag this thing and try to figure out how to make it work. Some old saint who has worked tirelessly for decades, keeping up one particular part of our ministry, will venture forth upon the promise of their baptism. They will die. And what we assumed would go on and on forever won't. And we will have to leap into that breach. And what will take place in this spiritual community will take place in your life as well. Won't it? Won't it? I've already kind of outlined some of the ways it will be there. But the life of faith is not a life free of chaos. It's not. It's not a life where turbulence is not experienced from time to time. And anybody who tells it differently, put it bluntly, is trying to sell you something. It is all right to be anxious, my friends. It is all right to be worried. It is perfectly natural to not be able to go to sleep and to wring your hands. The folks that would tell you that it's otherwise, that this is some kind of Disney film, and we're just waiting for the credits to roll and the prince and the princess to kiss, they're not living on the planet I'm living on. And they're not reading the Bible I'm reading. And I dare say they're not living the lives that we are. That's just marketing. So our counterparts, Mary and Joseph, are anxious. And we were anxious when our turkey wasn't thawed. We didn't know what to do. Fortunately, we had a resource at hand to help us. We have this great neighbor, Jill, who's Jewish. We found out that Jill wasn't going to have any vertical on Christmas Day. And even though she's not Christian, we felt like, gosh, here we are, we're all together. She's next door in her house with just her cat, and it's a black cat at that. I mean, what kind of Christmas is that? We got to do something for this woman, so let's invite her over. And we find out that there's this venerable old Christian Jewish way of celebrating Christmas. It's you go out and you eat Chinese food. She said, oh yeah, we always do this. This is what you do. All the Christians are home eating ham and eating potatoes and eating turkey, and so you go and hang out with the Buddhists and you eat Chinese. So we grabbed Jill up and we all went to Lynn's Walk, and I had my